Spoiler alert for Mushoku Tensei Volume 6. If you haven't read it, then I suggest you do so before continuing on to this video. After departing from his father, Rudeus then goes searches for his other family. But little does he know, it will be a lot harder than he thinks. Hello everybody, this is the Anime Bro here, and welcome to another video. And today, I'll be reviewing Mushoku Tensei Volume 6. Now before this video starts, please like, share, and subscribe for more videos just like this. And come back next time as I talk about Volume 7. And now, let's begin the video. So the first thing I want to talk about is the story. Now Volume 6 is very similar to Volume 5. But I think Volume 6 is way better than 5. And the reason why I think that is because the structure of the story was way satisfying than in Volume 5. In Volume 5, the main thing was the family drama. And after the family drama, that was basically it for Volume 5. There was nothing more, the story was pretty bland, it just had many extra stories that honestly weren't really that great, and then it ended. That was basically Volume 5. But in Volume 6, it didn't seem like the story was just dragging on to have more pages. It actually felt like there was a satisfying ending to it. We got the family drama, then we had a bigger problem, and then eventually it ended very sadly with everyone basically departing. And I really do like that in this volume. And another thing that I really do like about this volume is that it's like a roller coaster ride. It eventually becomes happy when Rudeus finds out that he's getting close to one of his other family members. Then eventually there's a struggle where he tries to actually get his family members. And then eventually it becomes very happy again when he saves his family members. But then eventually it all goes downhill after meeting Orsted, and then eventually with Dead End separating at the very end. It's a very sad ending, but honestly it was really good. In fact, it's probably one of my favorite volumes so far. A lot of twists and turns, a lot of new characters, and a lot of great moments for each character in Dead End. And another thing that I really do like about this volume is that we get Eris's point of view. Now I'll get more into Eris's point of view when I talk about the moments because it's in there, but it really was worth it having this point of view. It took so long. Since Volume 2, I always wanted this thing to happen, and now that we had it, it was worth the wait. I just love it. This moment alone is one of the reasons why Volume 6 is one of my favorites. Alright, now let's talk about the characters. So, the first character I want to talk about is Aisha, Rudeus' younger sister from Lilith. Now, what we get to learn most about Aisha is that she's a very intelligent girl. Even Paul said this in Volume 5. Compared to Norm, Aisha is very intelligent for her age. She was able to find a way to actually send a letter to her father, and also she found out that Rudeus was her big brother. But in the beginning, before she actually revealed all this, we learned that she actually doesn't like Rudeus because he is a pervert. So the reason why she finds this out is because Rudeus' secret shrine thing is Roxy's underwear, and she doesn't like the fact that Rudeus is worshipping a pair of underwear. Now, Rudeus eventually tells her why he has this, and it's still a stupid idea because there's a lot of other things you could have kept from your master, and you decided that, so it's just disgusting. But eventually she accepts it and eventually ends things off very nicely with Rudeus, which is something different from the interactions with Norm. But I think what really mostly helped with that is the fact that when they first met, she actually rescued him. But it's still good that Rudeus actually ended things nicely with one of his siblings. Next we got Lilith, Aisha's mother and Rudeus' maid. Now Aisha tells us most of what Lilith has been doing, but what we know from Lilith is that during the teleportation incident, she was actually teleported with Aisha because she was holding her. And because of this, she was considered an intruder to the kingdom of Shirone. She was kept as a hostage by one of the princes because she knew Rudeus. Now the reason for this is because there was this big plan where she would be kept as a hostage to drag out Rudeus, and then Rudeus would be kept as a hostage for Roxy, and it was a big elaborate plot that honestly didn't go through because there were other people that were totally against the prince, and yeah, that was basically it. It just didn't go through because of poor planning. And it's also here that before the teleportation incident, we learned that Lilith was actually teaching Aisha to serve Rudeus. Now, Aisha was totally against it. Like I said before, she knew that Rudeus was a pervert. And I honestly couldn't blame her. I wouldn't serve him too. But Lilith really wanted Aisha to serve Rudeus because she sees that Rudeus did a great thing for not only her, but also Aisha. And for those who actually read Volume 1, you know about the family meeting. And it's because of this that she holds Rudeus in a really high regard. Now, the third person I want to talk about is Zanoba, which I don't know if I'm saying the name right, but whatever. Zanoba is the third prince of Shirone and has incredible strength, and is also kind of the hero of this story. After Rudeus was captured by his brother, Zanoba actually forced his brother to release Rudeus from his grip. Not because he's a good person per se, but mostly because he really likes figures, and the figures that Rudeus had been making were one of the things he really liked. And he basically helped Rudeus out because Rudeus would eventually make him his apprentice. And I don't know if this is going to go through or not, but hopefully we get to meet him again. Doesn't seem like he's that bad of a guy. It's just with his strength, it's really hard for him to actually know if he's a good person or not. Because by stories that we know, he lashes out and does things carelessly. But apparently one of the guards that he used to have really actually has him in high regard. So I'm guessing he's a good guy. He may be just a morally great character, which I guess will make him a really interesting character in the future. And then finally, even though we don't get much of it, we get our first major antagonist in Mushoku Tensei, which is Orested. Now, because of the man god, we actually know a lot from him. But when we first meet him, he is so powerful that Eris and Ruijerd are scared. They really were terrified when they were crossing by. And it was also because of him that we learned something very interesting, and it was the fact that Paul was only supposed to have 2 daughters and not actually have Rudeus. So when Rudeus was actually born, it kind of changed things. And it's a really interesting concept to have. By just existing, Rudeus changed the world as we know it. Now, Orsted is one of the most powerful creatures in existence. In fact, it is said that he is the second most powerful person in the world. Or the first. I actually don't know. Just know the fact that he is very, very strong. And he also has a curse that is similar to Ruijerd that basically means everyone is going to hate him. And I also want to put him on here because this was also one of the first major defeats that not only Rudeus but Dead End faced. Everyone was completely destroyed. Rudeus almost died. In fact, if it wasn't for the man who almost killed him, probably would have died again. And I really do like that in a character. And it wasn't because he just attacked Rudeus for no reason. He actually thinks Rudeus is a disciple of the man god. And he really hates the man god. And that was basically why we attacked him. Which means we're going to have more of the man god and try to understand why he actually is this way. But not only that, but eventually we get to ask the question, is the man god good? Because if the world's most powerful man hates him, then can he be trusted? Or is the real villain really Orsted? And yeah, that's all I have to say about him. A terrifying character, but a really amazing one, no doubt. Alright, now let's talk about location. So the only location that we really have is Shirone Kingdom. And while reading this, I was able to find out a couple things about it. First, the sides of the highway were rice fields and livestock, which means that they could feed their kingdom, which is important for a kingdom like this. And some of the pastures have clovers on them. So that's a thing. It's not really useful, but it is a thing. And an interesting fact about this kingdom is that it's a buffer between the conflict zones and other countries. So basically it is represented as like the last location before getting into areas where it gets very dangerous with either monsters or just random humans trying to kill each other. It has a wall that surrounds its perimeter, which is really good when your country is in a buffer zone. And also there are many dungeons in here. Now, this actually makes sense why this would be a dangerous place to live. Because of many dungeons, and also because there is a conflict zone here, it would mean that a lot of the people here are relatively strong and can really do a lot of damage on their own just by killing monsters and whatnot. And it's also ruled by a king, and that king has many different sons and stuff. But yeah, that's basically all I have on it. If you have anything else to add, then comment down below. I wasn't able to find much in this volume. Alright, now let's talk about some iconic moments. So the first moment that I want to talk about is Rudeus talking with the man god. Now normally the conversations that Rudeus has with the man god goes as follows. The man god tells Rudeus that he needs to do something, and then Rudeus does what the man god actually tells him. But this time it was completely different. Rudeus actually asks the man god to find out where his family is, and the man god tells him to do that. It all moves forward because of this one moment. And the reason why I want to put this as one of my first ones is because this is the first time that Rudeus actually asks for something from the man god, instead of the man god just telling Rudeus to do this. So it's kind of a big step between their relationship, and maybe the man god could actually be a good guy. Who knows? Only the future will tell. Next is Rudeus meets Aisha. Now, when we first meet Aisha, she's actually following Rudeus because she's trying to find her way to the guild. She wants to mail a letter to her father so that her father could rescue her and her mother. But little does she know is that she actually meets up with her big brother. And how it kind of goes out is basically like this super cool action scene where Rudeus saves her from some guards that are trying to take her back to the castle and keep her under watch. And it's also here that we learn about the things she's learned from her mother about Rudeus, that he's a pervert and that she's been taught to actually serve him for the rest of his life, and the fact that she doesn't really like that. And it kind of makes sense for her perspective. She doesn't want to work for a guy that's a pervert. And it's also because of this that instead of saying, "I'm your big brother," Rudeus tries to actually pretend like he's someone else, and Ruijerd and Eris go along with it. So that was basically that moment. And I really do like this moment because it's a different moment from what we got from Volume 5. Instead of fighting the person that they see, he actually does something good, and it puts a positive spin on his sibling instead of a negative one like with Norn. Next is Dead End loses to Orested. Now, like I said when I was talking about Orsted, this is the very first time that Ruijerd and Eris were actually freaking out about an opponent. When they first meet Orsted, Eris and Ruijerd are just standing there, not knowing what to do. They are scared. Rudeus isn't scared, but they are. And this is the first time we actually see this. Until this point, Ruijerd was considered the best soldier ever, because he would beat any challenger that came along their way. He can kill anyone. He was basically the best warrior. But when Orested comes by, that all changes. They fight really hard, Ruijerd doing his best to actually keep Orsted at bay, but it all fails. Rudeus gets his chest ripped open by Orsted's hand and eventually kinda almost kills him.
And it's a really important moment to learn here because it shows that Rudeus is not the strongest guy. There are people so much stronger than him. Rudeus may have more mana than the evil Emperor Lapas, but that doesn't mean anything if you do not know how to use it. And this definitely showed that Dead End was nowhere near the strength of this guy. And then next is Ruijerd leaves Rudeus and Eris. After going through so many volumes with the three of these guys, to just see them depart like this is very sad. Ruijerd leaves Rudeus and Eris not because he doesn't like them or because he thinks his job is done. It's because he really sees them as an adult now. They crossed the world from the Demon Continent to the Millis Continent and now to the Central Continent just to get Eris home. And it was a really big journey that I was able to follow. And even though it was eventually going to end, it's still really sad to see these guys part. They part on good terms too. Ruijerd tells them that they are adults now, that he's going to be treating them, if they ever run into each other, like adults. So he's not going to protect them, he's going to allow them to do their own thing, and he won't be like he was in Volume 3. He will know that he can rely on them, and he will use his adult standards to them instead of treating them like children. And then finally, my favorite part in this volume is Eris's perspective. For so long, I've wanted Eris's perspective, all the way since we got the introduction to her in Volume 2. And was it worth the wait? Yes, it was. Many things in Eris's perspective basically shows two things. One, the events that happened from Volume 2 all the way to now, and also her feelings for Rudeus. For so long, she didn't know what Rudeus felt about her. In fact, one thing she thought was that Rudeus saw her as a prize. Not really someone, but just something that you can have. But when eventually she go on this journey and eventually live with Rudeus, she eventually understood that he was a kind guy and he really did care about her. And that was one of the things I was so happy about. Reading all about the thoughts that Eris had showed me that this was a character I really liked. It was worth the wait. It was something I really do love. By far, it is one of my favorite moments, and not just this volume, but also in all of Mushoku Tensei. I love Eris as a character, and the fact that we got this made me love her even more. And another thing that really makes me like her as a character was she didn't feel like she was worthy of Rudeus. When she did it with Rudeus, because that's what happened, she realized Rudeus is younger than her. And the one thing she really is sad about is she's going to feel like she's using him. She doesn't want to feel that way. She actually wants to be right there with Rudeus and actually not him having to be her protector. And I really feel for it. Of course, it's really sad that she actually didn't write it well, and it basically made the event of Volume 7, which I'll get to into the next video, but I really do gotta say, this was by far my favorite moment in all of Mushoku Tensei. Eris's point of view is one thing I'll hold in high regard. Alright, now let's end this video. So if I were to rank this volume, I would rank it an A. This is a really great volume and by far better than Volume 5. It had the same structure, but unlike 5 where it seemed like they were adding pages to the end just to make a volume, this one actually had a satisfying ending. It was very happy, it was very tragic, and honestly, I think it was one of the best volumes so far. Now, it does have its flaws. For one thing, Rudeus was just trapped in this volume. He really didn't do much in this story besides just sit in a hole and just wait for someone to come in and save him. All that hero stuff happened with Eris and Ruijerd, and sadly we didn't really get that. So it kind of was boring on that part. But I will say though that I really did like that Rudeus ended this volume with a great relationship with his sister. Unlike Norn, who is probably still hating Rudeus right now, Aisha is looking forward to the day when she will be serving her brother for the rest of her life. She sees him as a hero now, and in her mind, Rudeus is one of the greatest people she has ever met. Alright, and that is the end of this video. If you really enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe for more videos just like this. And come back next time as we talk about Volume 7. And as always, I am the Anime Bro, and see you guys later. Peace!